She didn't cry when she left. She just looked at me like I was defective and said, "You voted for the wrong man. You're as blind as the rest of them." Then she picked up her suitcase and walked out like she was late for a meeting, not ending a marriage. And I stood there, still trying to process how my biggest betrayal came not from another man, but from a ballot. My name's Mark. I'm 35. Self-taught programmer. Quiet. Steady. Not flashy, not flaky. The kind of man who still thinks honesty means something. But apparently to some people, honesty only counts if it matches their opinions. I married Sophie because I thought we were different, thought she was different. She said I made her feel safe. Grounded. But what I didn't know was that safety had an expiration date. And its name was Loretta, her mother. Academic. Activist. The kind of woman who'd never raise her voice, she'd just raise her eyebrow and destroy you with a sigh. From day one, she treated me like a temp hire in her daughter's life. Not polished enough. Not educated enough. And worst of all, not politically aligned enough. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to believe that a person could fall out of love because you filled in the wrong circle on a piece of paper. But Loretta did believe that. And eventually, so did Sophie. She used to laugh when her mom made those little digs at me. "Mark reads Facebook like it's a newspaper," Loretta would say, sipping her wine with that smug little smile. Sophie would chuckle, not a big laugh, just enough to keep the peace. And I'd pretend not to hear it. The first Thanksgiving I spent with her family, Loretta sat across the table and asked me in front of everyone, "So when are you going to get a real education?" Like the code I wrote for a living wasn't real. Like the software I built that paid for her daughter's apartment wasn't real. And that's the thing no one sees. They think being quiet means being weak. They don't realize that silence isn't surrender, it's surveillance. For months, I watched the way Loretta dripped poison into every interaction. "Are you sure you're happy living so simply? You two don't want kids yet, do you? With his job security? Don't you ever feel like you're outgrowing this phase?" Phase. That's what she called our marriage. A phase. Something her daughter would grow out of once she found someone who spoke at the right conferences and voted with the right pen. I didn't push back. I didn't defend myself. Not because I was afraid. Because I was documenting. Learning. Training. They thought they were mocking a man who didn't belong. But really, they were building the man who would burn their whole narrative down. It wasn't a blowout fight. There was no shouting, no slammed doors. Just a slow, invisible shift, like someone turning down the volume on your life one notch at a time. It started after the midterms. We were watching coverage on the couch, just the two of us. I didn't even say anything, just shook my head at one of the results. And that's when Sophie asked, without looking at me, "Wait, you didn't vote for him, did you?" I told her the truth. "No, I don't vote for people I don't believe in." She went quiet. Not mad, just tight. Like she was clenching something behind her teeth. After that, everything changed. She stopped holding my hand when her mom was around. Started calling me old-fashioned with a tone that wasn't playful anymore. Conversations got shorter. Colder. Suddenly, I wasn't principled, I was stubborn. I wasn't grounded, I was closed off. And every time Loretta visited, it got worse. She'd sit on our couch like it was hers. Bring books she thought I should read. Drop comments like bombs. "You know, Sophie, it's dangerous raising children in a household without ideological clarity." And Sophie? She just nodded. Sometimes with a smile. Sometimes with silence that said more than any words. "See, Loretta didn't destroy us. Sophie just stopped resisting." And the moment a third person gets a say in your marriage, you're no longer building a life together. You're auditioning for approval you'll never earn. There's a look people give when they've decided they're better than you, but still need something from you. Sophie started giving me that look around month 6. She started spending more weekends at her mother's. Said she needed space to think. "Think about what?" I asked once. She didn't answer. Then came the dinner that made everything snap into focus. Loretta invited us to a university event, something about narrative power in post-capitalist discourse. I didn't want to go, but Sophie insisted. So I went. And there I was, standing next to them, invisible in a room full of people who could quote Foucault but couldn't set up a printer. At one point, someone asked Loretta about discourse in divided families. And she said, in front of 30 strangers and my wife, "Well, some of us marry outside our intellectual class, and then we have to manage the fallout." No one laughed, but no one stopped her either. That was the night I realized I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a mistake she hadn't figured out how to explain away yet. I didn't get dumped. Not in the way people imagine it. There was no tearful confrontation, no suitcase on the porch. First, it was dinners she didn't wait for. Then, calls she didn't answer. then an entire weekend at her mother's without a word. I asked if she was okay. She said, I just need time to breathe. And it hit me. I wasn't oxygen to her anymore. We had a talk. Correction, I talked. She nodded. I told her I felt us drifting. That I still loved her. That I didn't understand what was happening. She said, it's not about love, Mark. It's about direction. Values. Vision. That's what you say when you want to make leaving someone sound noble. Like you're not breaking a heart, you're just following a higher calling. I asked her if Loretta had something to do with this. She said, my mother just wants what's best for me. I didn't respond. Because I finally understood. Sophie didn't marry me for who I was. She married me for who she thought I could be, with the right pressure, the right molding, the right education. And when I didn't change fast enough, she pulled the plug. She folded the sweater I got her for Christmas like it was just another mistake she was correcting. I'm going to stay with Mom for a while, she said. Not, we need a break. Not, let's talk. Just that, like a change of address form. I didn't beg. Didn't argue. Because I knew what this really was, a transfer of custody. I was no longer her partner. I was property being returned to sender. The front door clicked. And for the first time in 5 years, the apartment was silent. I went to the garage and opened the old hard drive I hadn't touched in 3 years. The one with the half-finished code for a tool Loretta had laughed at during Christmas dinner. You really think the world needs another idea from a man who reads the news on Facebook? She smirked. Maybe not. But I didn't build it for the world anymore. I built it for her. For them. For every word they used to shrink me. Let them think I disappeared. I wasn't gone. I was just getting ready to return. With receipts. After Sophie left, Loretta sent me a text. Just one line. Some things just aren't meant to last. I hope you use this time to grow. As if I'd been some undercooked project in her daughter's life, a fixer-upper that finally got written off. She probably imagined me sitting on the couch, sulking over frozen meals and missed chances. But what she didn't know, what she never understood, was that I never waste silence. While she was sipping lattes in faculty lounges, I was running back-end builds. While Sophie was reposting lectures about liberation through division, I was buying silence, one domain and licensing agreement at a time. The tool I'd shelved years ago? Now it worked. Better than I expected. It tracked academic speech patterns, AI-powered, and flagged inconsistencies in public versus private statements. Originally, it was meant to audit bias in teaching institutions. Yeah? It had a new purpose. I plugged in Loretta's name. It pulled up audio archives from 15 years ago. Class recordings. Panels. Student Q&A sessions. And there it was, clear as day. Statements on gender roles. Mockery of lower education Americans. A line where she actually said, some minds are simply not evolved enough to participate in modern democracy. She always said my ideas were dangerous. Turns out hers were, recorded. Let them believe I was licking my wounds. Because when I come back, it won't be for closure. Revenge? That's emotional. No, what I was doing wasn't about rage. It was about math. Precision. Control. I didn't storm in waving accusations. I sent emails. To the board of the very foundation Loretta helped run, a progressive think tank with a zero-tolerance policy for discriminatory academic behavior. I used a pseudonym. Just an anonymous contributor. Attached were clips. Quotes. Transcripts. Nothing edited, just her, unfiltered. They didn't respond. Not right away. So I waited. And while I waited, I bought something else. See, Loretta sat on the board of a grant program for social innovation. She bragged about it every Thanksgiving like it was her baby. What she didn't know was that a private donor, recently divested, had opened a small window of opportunity. I made an offer through a third party. Quiet and clean. 3 weeks later, I owned a minority share in the very institution that gave her status. Not enough to control it. Just enough to walk through the front door and sit at the same table. Sophie still hadn't called. Not even a message. Because while they were sipping wine and quoting theory, I was rewriting the ending. Not a sad one. A strategic one. The foundation announced their annual conference, their crown jewel. A full weekend of panels, keynotes, press. And Loretta? Headliner. As always, this time the theme was the danger of echo chambers, rebuilding trust across divides. Irony doesn't just write itself, sometimes it sends you an invitation. No one knew my name. No one connected the dots. I sat 3 rows back during Loretta's opening speech. She was glowing. That performative calm. That glass of wine on the stage confidence. She opened with a line I'd heard before, one she recycled from her lectures. We must be vigilant against those who weaponize ignorance. The audience clapped. Because while they clapped, the AV tech team was preparing the next segment. A special contribution from our newest donor, the coordinator said. The lights dimmed. The screen lit up. And there she was, not the Loretta they knew, but the one I'd cataloged, archived, time-stamped. Her voice filled the hall. We coddle the intellectually unfit. That's why democracy fails. Then another. Some people belong in the system and some just vote in it. Silence. I looked at her. And for the first time, her face cracked. Just slightly. The nudge had been delivered. And the empire? It was starting to shake. The clip ran only 3 minutes. 3 minutes to unravel a career built over 3 decades. 3 minutes to remind a room full of progressives that the woman leading them only believed in equality for the people she approved of. No one clapped at the end. No one moved. Except Loretta. She stood up slowly like the air had thickened around her. Tried to speak, microphone off. Then came the murmurs. From students, faculty, even press. And the worst part for her? Not the outrage. The embarrassment. See, outrage can be defended. Spun. But humiliation? That sticks. I didn't say a word. Didn't rise. Didn't look smug. Because this wasn't a punch. It was a mirror. She wanted the world to believe I was the problem. An uneducated, conservative nobody who didn't belong at her table. And yet I was now sitting at that table. As a man she dismissed. 2 hours later, I received an internal email thread. Pending review of conduct and alignment with institutional values. They didn't need to finish the sentence. She was out. Stripped of her seat, her voice, and her name. And yet, this wasn't the finale. Because Loretta had one more thing to lose. Her daughter. I didn't call Sophie. Didn't message her. Didn't send a single word. Not when Loretta was fired. Not when her name vanished from the foundation website. Not even when it made national education blogs under the headline, Professor resigns amid elitism allegations. I gave Sophie what she gave me. Silence. But here's the difference. Mine was intentional. Hers was a retreat. And when someone only loves you under their terms, your silence sounds like punishment. To them, your absence becomes betrayal even if they were the ones who walked out. It took exactly 6 days. Then came the email. Can we talk? I didn't open it. The subject line was enough. She reached out again, a text this time. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Can we meet? I waited 2 hours before replying. Sure. Let's do dinner. Bring Loretta. She said Loretta wasn't speaking to anyone. That things were complicated. I told her that was fine. I already had a reservation. Same restaurant we had our rehearsal dinner at. And a small private room. With press contacts I hadn't spoken to since the day she left. She thought we were going to reconnect. She had no idea I was about to return every ounce of dignity they'd stolen from me with tip, tax, and a very public receipt. She walked in like nothing had happened. That same smile she used when she used to get her way. Mark, she said, like it still meant something. I stood, shook her hand, and we sat. She ordered red wine. I asked for water. Listen, she began, about what happened with my mother. I cut her off. I'm not here to talk about Loretta. She blinked. That's when I opened the folder. Clean, crisp, printed. The same attention to detail she once mocked as obsessive. Inside? A full documentation of her mother's resignation, the donor trail that led to it, and the media responses that followed. Her hands froze. Why would you show me this? Because I wanted you to know what silence looks like when it finally answers back. She laughed dry, nervous. Are you trying to punish me? No, I said. I'm trying to remind you. Of what? That when you let someone belittle your partner long enough. When you let your mother run our marriage like a campaign. Eventually, someone votes back. That's when the server walked in and asked if we were ready to begin the press statement. Sophie's face dropped. You invited the press? I invited the truth. And for once, I wasn't the one being interrupted, corrected, or laughed off the table. Because this time, they were the guests in my narrative. The moment the reporters entered, Sophie's posture changed. That polished calm she'd inherited from Loretta cracked like a cheap plate under pressure. Mark, she hissed. This isn't fair. Neither was pretending I didn't exist for a year, I said, loud enough for the microphones. She looked around, realized this wasn't a dinner. It was a reckoning. One journalist, young guy, blazer too tight, leaned in. Mr. Hall, would you like to make a statement? I nodded. I would. I stood up. I was called uneducated, dangerous, backwards, not by strangers, but by the woman I married and the woman who raised her. I was told I was unworthy because I didn't speak the right language. Didn't vote the right way. Didn't read the right books. Sophie wouldn't look up. Loretta's ghost lingered in the silence. But here's what they forgot: I built my life from the ground up. Without connections. Without shortcuts. Without inherited status. The room was still. And now? I sit on the board of the institution that once mocked me. I funded the collapse of the very echo chamber that called itself open-minded. I looked straight at Sophie. And I'm not here to humiliate anyone. I'm here to remind people, especially the quiet ones, that your voice matters even if they try to laugh it into silence. Reporters scribbled like they were afraid to miss a word. Sophie stood, tried to speak, but now it was her turn to be unheard. The articles hit within hours. Round pushpin: Foundation implodes after donor exposes internal elitism. Round pushpin: Viral speech on academic hypocrisy sparks national debate. Round pushpin: Anonymous donor turns out to be ex-husband of board member's daughter. They didn't use my name in the headlines, but they used hers and her mother's, over and over again. By morning, Loretta was wiped from every faculty page she ever smiled on. The think tank posted a carefully worded apology. Donors pulled out. Grants froze. I got calls. From podcasts, editorials, even a few political orgs, both sides, ironically. I didn't say yes to any of them, because this was never about fame. It was about clarity. About what happens when people try to shrink you down into a box that fits their narrative. And you burn the box with receipts. They called me ignorant, unworthy, invisible. So I became the story. And this time, there's only one chapter left. She came back once. Just Sophie on my doorstep, holding a soft apology like it could rewind the years. I didn't know, she said. But she did. She knew the moment she told her friends I was a little too traditional. She knew the moment she rolled her eyes at my ballot. She knew when she let her mother mock me at our own wedding rehearsal. And said nothing. It wasn't about politics, she added, like that softened it. But it was always about politics. Because for her, for Loretta, politics wasn't politics. It was identity. And I voted wrong. Which meant I was wrong. Not forward enough. Not educated enough. Not aligned enough. She didn't marry a man. She married a project, one she thought she could fix into a proper ally. And when I didn't bend, she broke us. Now she stood there, eyes soft, voice trembling. But I didn't invite her in. Because I finally understood. She left me over a vote. But I rebuilt myself into a verdict. And while they played superiority games behind faculty doors, I let the facts and their own words deliver the sentence. I closed the door. I wasn't leaving her behind. I was closing the book they wrote me out of it, and publishing the one they couldn't ignore.